Post Scriptum. I get 101 questions about this game all the time, both when I'm playing online with you guys and in my comment section as well. Typically, it's around, hey, how do I die less? How do I do so and so better? Everywhere in between. I get all of these questions all the time, and today I'm going to break down to you my pro tips for Post Scriptum, and also break down some things I think you damn well shouldn't do, because I get a lot of this in games. We need to stamp it out like a cigarette ad from the 1990s, and we really need to start clamping down on some behaviors in Post Scriptum that just don't work. So I'm going to be highlighting things that I think you should be doing, and pro tips and things that I think will help you improve, and highlighting some things that you absolutely fundamentally 100% shouldn't do whilst playing this game. Hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys, and of course feel free to subscribe for some more Post Scriptum content. Believe it or not, 80% of the people watching this video aren't subscribed to this channel, so the more the merrier. Feel free to join our community of tactical shooters. Number one, in terms of pro tips, always hydrate. I get this question so many times in my videos that it downright concerns me. People always say, you know, why are you using your canteen so often? Why are you doing X, Y, and Z? And the simple fact of the matter is that I like to be what I would call a mad bastard in Post Scriptum. The reason I tend to do so well in terms of getting kills and in terms of just general gameplay dynamic is because I always move hard and fast at my opponents. I never slow down, I never stop, I never sit tight, I never work too precautiously. I'm always working hard to cause problems. And one thing that I notice 9 times out of 10 is people miss shots because they simply don't have the stamina to focus on their targets, or they've sprinted into a situation and realized that they've ran out of stamina. So whenever I find myself in a tricky situation, or I feel as though I'm about to run into a wall of enemies, or I know I'm going into a hostile location, A, you want to move quickly because it makes you a harder target to hit, and B, you want to be able to fire back with a relatively good degree of accuracy. Even if you land your shots near your opponent, likelihood is you'll suppress them, and that will give you an advantage in landing your final shot. Especially with weapons like the M1 Grand, which is semi-auto mag, you have many opportunities there to suppress opponents and lay down accurate fire to get the kills necessary. But staying hydrated for all of that is the most important aspect. I despise it when people do this. This is the number one behavior I wish I could stamp out Post Scriptum. And you know what they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing twice and expecting different results. Or more than twice. Something along that lines. I didn't really pay attention when that quote happened. But anywho, it's this. Stop running in the same direction when you keep getting mowed down from the same direction. I don't really know where this comes from. Maybe some people think that, you know, after they've died once from one dude, they're definitely better than that guy, so they'll just try again. It just doesn't make sense to me, you know. The amount of times I play a game where we're like, okay, well, we're going to go and attack an objective. So we tried the east side, and well, that didn't really work. We tried the northeast side, and that didn't really work. So let's try the east side again. It's like, no. Refresh things, try different things. I always get a lot of criticism sometimes in my videos because I'm never around my squad mates, or I'm not necessarily directly next to them, and that's because I'm always probing possible ways into objectives and areas that might be more successful than others. And I use that simply by using the lay of the land. You know, I look for trench lines, I look for bush lines, I look for things that I feel as though the enemy won't suspect coming. And I don't do the same thing more than twice. You know, the only time I ever do that is if I'm certain or have a certain feeling that that route will be successful with a little shuffle or change here and there. But so many times I just see squads kind of like death marching towards machine guns and places that just simply aren't going to work for them. And they don't try anything different. They don't try something that's a little bit audacious, or try something that might take a little bit of time. You know, sometimes you do have to think outside the box and take a flank that might take 5 minutes to get there, but in the grand scheme of things, that works a lot better than doing the same thing on repeat. The next pro tip I have is simply understanding that gunfights in Post Scriptum are fully decided on accuracy and fully decided on your ability as a player to maneuver from a position of, you know, being in a bad spot to a position of doing well. And it's something that is incredibly important. You know, so many times in Post Scriptum, you know, I'll shoot at a guy who's in an open field, and his first instinct is just to stand in the open field and shoot back. You know, very rarely in Post Scriptum will you see me kill somebody who's just, you know, when I'm like standing in an open field or just, you know, out in the open doing nothing. I'm always trying to fire from positions of strength and superiority, be that some form of concealment, some form of hard cover, a position that I feel is advantageous, be in terms of vertical height or something like that. And I very rarely, you know, just drop people randomly. You know, it's always a very thought out and methodical thing. I'll always take out somebody if I know I have the drop on them. You know, I'll only ever engage people if I know I'm in a superior position to fight them. Or if I do get caught out in the open, I give myself the best opportunity for survival. You know, I will fire at these guys as accurately as possibly as I can, try and suppress them, try and move to a position that perhaps gives me an advantage, or at least gives me a chance in these situations. Willingness to use smoke grenades, willingness to just simply admit that you're not going to win a gunfight, so you should just walk away. And that's exactly why I survive so often. It's because, you know, my engagements are thought out and methodical. You know, for example, that if you're out in the open or in a position that things just aren't going to go well for you, you know, that you shouldn't fight somebody there. You know, you shouldn't just, you know, the amount of times I'll shoot at somebody and they'll go, ha, I'm in an open field, let me crouch and fire back, I'm sure that'll do something, and it just doesn't work for them. It is painfully stupid. And I really hope more people adopt this mantra of just fighting from positions of superiority, understanding that anything, be it concealment or hard cover, is going to give you advantages in situations. One thing I absolutely despise about most Post Scriptum players is just how goddamn docile they are. Start moving in this game. This game actually lets you sprint for relatively good percentages of times. You can zigzag without penalties. You can crouch and duck and move so freely in this game, and it gives you such an advantage. The number of times I get shot at in a zigzag or a sprint or a crouch or just, you know, general movement in the game stops that person from killing me is absolutely astronomical, especially when people are using semi-automatic rifles. The number of times I've got all these people with Kar-98s or Lee Enfields trying to pop me from like 100 meters away. Honestly, all it takes is a quick zag to the left and a zig to the right, and they can't do anything. The number of times I see people when they're in engagement who are just so painfully fearful of moving, or so painfully fearful of like going out into an open space or, you know, getting into some kind of cover, is mad in this game. You know, people, I think because they know that they can get one-shotted by rifles and stuff, and because time to kill is so incredibly high, they almost feel fearful to move in some places. And a lot like games like Escape from Tarkov, it's actually the players who are more on their toes and willing to move a bit more quickly through situations that tend to survive longer. My next pro tip is honestly quite simple, but really effective, and I don't know whether it's because people don't know that this exists, or whether or not they just don't care. But on Post Scriptum, you can very easily tell where landmarks and things change in-game. You can see dotted trench lines and bush lines. You can see things on the map that will indicate the best method of approach. Typically, in any given situation, the one that gives you the most level of cover, or the one that gives you the most level of concealment, will be the best route into an objective, and one that you should probe or try the most. And it's very simple. Just press M, open the map, and have a look around, and you'll be able to see exactly where you should be going, because those situations and those places with dotted tree lines, trench markings, and everything in between, and changes in elevation and height of the map will give you the best possible example or best possible way in. One thing I absolutely despise is people who get tunnel vision on a certain location. It's something that happens very frequently in Post Scriptum, and something that gets a lot of squads killed. You'd like to think in a unit of 7, 8, or 9 people that somebody would at least check behind you every once in a while, but the simple fact of the matter is that never happens in this game, and it fully is on you as an individual to make sure you do that. People in Post Scriptum tend to forget that when people are defending objectives or attacking objectives, they spread out very intensely. Very few people often are actually on top of the direct objective itself, unless it's a position of advantage, like a warehouse building or something with windows to shoot out of, or, you know, something that has a good level of elevation. And with all that being said, when so many people and so many elements of movement are happening around you, and squad-sized elements are moving around you as well, look around. 360 coverage happens instantly. You have the ability to look around with free look very easily and very straightforwardly. And lots of people just don't do that. I've managed to sneak up on entire squads as if it was nothing on numerous occasions, just because nobody looks left or right or behind them. They're just running towards where they think they should go. Moving on from my last point, one thing I always recommend is stop and assess. Stop and wait and look around. And you know, try and do stuff like that. It's really something I don't see enough in this game, and something that I don't see people do relatively any time during the game. But you'll notice it along my gameplay. You know, I sprint forward, I cover a fair distance of land towards a landmark or a piece of cover or concealment. I sit there for a bit, and I look around my way, you know, I look around to see what's happening, who's moving, where's covering who. Sometimes, in very scumbaggy situations, I will allow a teammate to run ahead of me, or, you know, if I see a blueberry, I just wait and see what happens to him. And then I proceed with my day, whether that reveals an enemy location, or perhaps something I should be wary of, or, you know, some kind of emplacement or something that means I should perhaps try a different route. Stopping and assessing a situation is really important, and something that not a lot of people do in Post Scriptum, but something that is a huge asset to individual players. Another thing I really wish I could stop. People who treat their ammo like they're firing gold. Like, guys, there are a lot of magazines in Post Scriptum. You start with like 7-8 mags in most weapons, and that's a lot of bullets. And if you find yourself in a sticky situation where you're being suppressed or somebody's got accurate fire on you, the only real way to do things is to shoot your damn way back out. And when you've got that many bullets and so many magazines, and chances are you'll probably die at some point in the not too distant future, which means using those bullets isn't especially special, start utilizing them. You know, I use a lot of mags. In fact, I actually get criticism regularly because a lot of people are like, oh, why did you mag dump here or there? And, well, the simple fact of the matter is, either I tag the guy, or, you know, whether it's I lead my shot and happen to get the lucky shot I'm looking for, or I suppress him enough that he doesn't kill me, and either way, that's a win-win scenario. And especially when you've got weapons like the G41, the M1 Grand, some of these MP40s, STGs, any kind of automatic weapon really, and semi-auto rifles especially, even with the Kar98 or the Enfield, they might be slow, but they're not painfully slow. You have the ability to fire back and really cause some trouble for the opponents. Anywho, I don't want this to get any particularly longer. I could probably ramble about this for about half an hour. And, you know, I guess I'll probably do a part 2 at some point if you guys are interested. Feel free to comment any questions, any concerns, anything in the bottom below, and I will get back to you. Anywho, folks, thank you. I will catch you again soon. My name's been TheTacticalBrit, and have a good day.